Hello everybody, San here, engineer, MBA, and investor. And in today's video, I want to talk about the future of CRISPR. Of course, this is Sunday morning. And I said, you know what, let's make a generic video today. No need to go to a specific, company or looking at a specific financial or specific news of a program, clinical trial or preclinical trial. What if we just talk about an image, right? And as you guys know, an image is worth 1,000 words, and this is the image we have, although there are some words on this image, but nonetheless here the point here I'm making is this is of course a tweet from Yair. So I said, you know what, let me take a look at it. This was tweeted like almost 2 weeks ago, but I said this is great. This is actually from a paper that we actually reviewed a few weeks ago, but I didn't review this image, right? And I think it is worth looking at it and sort of giving us a direction as to where the future of CRISPR may go. And I use the keyword may go because I don't think it's fair for anybody here in this channel, including myself, to really predict exactly where CRISPR is going to be in the next 10, 20, 30 years, right? I think we all have some sort of generic idea. I mean, there's some things that I think we can all agree on high level, but when we go to specific things, this is where we have to be careful, right? Because I'm stepping out here from CRISPR, just looking at technology as a general, right? I remember in the early 2000s, the future was gonna be like computers, and don't get me wrong, computers, servers, machines, workstations are extremely important, especially in the B2B world. But it was just sort of a belief that everybody would be heading down towards a path where we would have so powerful computers at home that we could run anything at so fast. And the reality is actually we've done that, but that wasn't really the major breakthrough of the 2000s and 2010s. It was actually the mobile smartphone technology revolution that we had, right? So obviously a smartphone became in the pockets of every citizen, at least in people in developed nations, and now it's being sprawled to less developed nations around the world, right? So the reason why I'm using that analogy is because as we go through this here, you just gotta remember, guys, like it's very hard to predict the future. It's so hard. Like there's certain things you can do, but to say that, okay, well, CRISPR is gonna be doing human therapeutics, it's gonna be doing fixing this set of disease, and we're gonna have no more problems with like balding, for example, in males. Like this is where you have to be careful, right? And I'm not saying it cannot be possible. I'm just saying that high level, you got to be really careful when you take a look at it, because you got to learn from history, right? History has shown us numbers of times that I remember people I think there was an ad, two things that I think, well, for only one thing I'll say, there was in an advertisement in a magazine in the early 20th century, so almost 100 years ago, that were saying that cars are going to be flying in the future in the year 2000. And here we are in 2023 and we have drones, which are not cars. So that's what I'm getting at, right? So anyways, so future directions for CRISPR: improved genome editing, machine learning, live cell imaging, faster, cheaper sequencing. I would argue there are a bunch of companies involved in all four space, less in the sequencing space, but more or less all these companies are sort of involved here in the improved genome editors. Of course, CRISPR is just a tool. There are many tools in the genome editing world. So near the future, introduce disease-resistant, improve yields in other crops. Sure, FDA approval, sickle cell disease. I think we can all agree with that. Actually, the crops that have already happened. FDA approval is bound to happen, in my opinion, in end of Q1, like we saw in the last video from Vertex, our earnings report. Approval for more CRISPR-edited crops for sale. That's already sort of in the process, in a sense. Improve in vivo delivery. We already got data from NTLA, so that's pretty good. For in vivo, increased number of CRISPR-based treatment moving to later stage clinical trials. This has already happened this year. It's going to happen a lot more in the next year. Engineer multi-genetic traits in more plants and animals. Okay, already happened. Increased nutritional value of more foods. Already happened, right? Approval of more clinical trials. It's ongoing. So these are things obviously in the near future that you can sort of predict because they sort of already happened or partially happened, and you can sort of see this coming, right? It can't go wrong in the first quadrant of circle here. In the outer circle here, let's take a look here. In the distant future, widely accessible treatment for diseases. I think we can all agree with that. I really don't think anybody is disputing that. But notice that they didn't, specify an amount. They didn't specify a region. They didn't specify a percentage of people. They're just a generic statement, which again, it is a safe statement to make when you're making these predictions. Harvest of pig organs for transplant patients. Actually, this has already happened. So, it happened, although the patient actually died after like 40 days. I think it was 50 or 60 days, something like that, after that news broke out that they survived, which has never happened in the past with CRISPR, but unfortunately, the patient died. But nonetheless, I can see this happening. I wouldn't say pig organs specifically. I think could be something else here, so keep that in mind. We take a look at it. The next bullet point here says genome editing has prophylactic against neurodegenerative or cardiovascular diseases. So I think this is a safe pick. I don't really see. Again, it's a broad statement. It's a generic statement. They didn't say that no one's going to have a heart attack in the future. People are going to be preventing heart attacks. By 40, 50 years old, they're all going to have some sort of CRISPR-based injection that will prevent them from heart attacks, which is actually a prediction in the space, in the biotech space in the next 20, 30 years, but especially from Verve Therapeutics, who actually claim that. But that's not, this is a generic statement. Widespread use of many CRISPR-edited disease-resistant high-yielding crops. Again, I don't really think this is arguable here. I think, in my opinion, and I've said this many times in this channel, and I think a lot of people agreed with my statement the last time I made this, is that I'm actually surprised that Caribou as a company who actually own patent on the agriculture side, they've licensed out to a company called Genus, that they haven't explored and doubled down on agriculture, right? It's just in my opinion, a lost opportunity. I think while you're going through these human therapeutics trials, and these are extremely time consuming, and extremely a long time frame, right? This is not something you can just spin out from scratch in a year and get it out commercial, right? These are things going to take years, if not a decade, right? Although they've been doing it for years, but the point here is that while they're doing that, why not have a little team within the company to sort of double down on CRISPR-based crops, like editing, crops to make it more highly resistant to diseases. Think about what happened with the eggs recently, a few weeks ago, when we had a shortage of egg in U.S. because of a disease or whatnot. Whatever happened, think of those types of arguments where you could use and commercialize it while you're supplementing the human therapeutic side, right? Think of how Tesla did it with before Model 3. They did with or even before the Model S, they did it with the Roadster, right? Because they needed fun to basically eventually go to Model S, and then eventually Model 3 and Y, and here we are, right? So that's how I see it. But unfortunately, obviously it's a different ball game. It's not as simple as what the example of Tesla. There, agriculture is a whole different beast than human therapeutics. But I would love to see a company venture in that. If this was a request from my end, if I had one sentence of advice, I don't know if advice is the right word, but maybe my time in this space, my understanding is that there is untapped potential, and there's a huge opportunity for these companies to capitalize on the agriculture side. But whether or not it makes sense business-wise and so on, I'm quite confident those companies have quite few individuals a lot more smarter than me to make those claims. So we'll see what happens on that end. So this is what it is. This is interesting. I find it really nice to talk about these high-level things. Sometimes it reminds our viewers, especially the newer subscribers, where we are right now, where we can go in the near future and distant future. Lots of exciting things are coming in 2023. In my opinion, by the end of 2023, we'll have a really good picture of the timeline for several of these companies when it comes to commercial side of things. All eyes are on FDA approval for CDX001 or Hexacell right now. I think this is basically every investor in this space. If you're not invested in this space, you probably have your eyes on that program right now, because this will make or break the timeline, right? Just because it gets rejected does not mean CRISPR will be pushed back for like 10 years. That's not my point. My point is that if you're looking into investing in CRISPR and you're expecting some sort of commercial side of CRISPR within the next 3-4 years, then for any of these companies other than CRISPR Therapeutics, then if CRISPR Therapeutics gets their thing approved by Q1 of this year, basically in a couple of weeks, then you should be going all in my opinion, with NTLA, with untapped potential for some of those companies other than CRISPR Therapeutics as well. I mean, again, not financial advice. I'm just spewing out my thoughts here. I mean, I've had conversation with several individuals, and people are just looking forward for the space. They're really interested, especially with the ARK Invest Big Ideas 2023 report recently. But they're being cautious, right? Because they all know this is looming around. You know, if the FDA rejects this, then this pushes back certain things. Like, let's be honest, right? The timeline gets pushed back, or we could be, optimistic and find reason not to believe that they'll push it back and reject it, and they'll approve it, and we'll go with a sickle cell disease treatment, right, for CHDI-001 in the US. So we'll end this video like this, guys. As always, subscribe if you're not, like this video if you found value, and let me know in the comments below, guys, what do you guys think about the future of CRISPR? Let me know, really curious. Hopefully you're having a beautiful Sunday with yourself, with your family and friends. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.